5 empires, 5 moments where the greatest threat didn't come from outside the walls, it came from within them. We talk a lot about invasions, about armies clashing on open fields, but some of the most decisive collapses in history happened in a throne room behind a locked door between people who were supposed to be family. What you're about to discover is how the most powerful rulers on earth were undone not by their enemies, but by the people closest to them. Stay with me, because every single one of these will change how you think about power. Most people think empires fall because they run out of soldiers or money or land. But that's not what the historical record actually shows. Time and again, the fatal wound is internal. A whisper in the right ear, a forged letter, a guard paid twice. The palace coup is one of history's most efficient weapons, and most rulers never see it coming precisely because they refuse to believe the danger lives inside their own home. Let's start with one that almost nobody outside academic circles talks about, and yet it reshaped the ancient world in ways we still feel today. The year is 522 BC. The Persian Empire is at its absolute peak. Cyrus the Great built it. His son Cambyses II inherited it. And then, while Cambyses was away on a military campaign in Egypt, something extraordinary happened back home. A man appeared on the throne claiming to be Smerdis, Cambyses' younger brother. He issued decrees, he collected taxes, he sat in the royal seat and issued royal commands. The entire imperial machinery bent to his will. There was just one problem. Cambyses had secretly ordered his brother Smerdis killed before leaving for Egypt, fearing a rival claim to power. So who was this man on the throne? He was an impersonator, a Magian priest named Gaumata, who either bore a physical resemblance to Smerdis or simply exploited the fact that almost no one in the empire had ever seen the real prince up close. For months, this fraud ruled Persia. Cambyses died under suspicious circumstances before he could return to reclaim his throne. Think about what that means. A pretender armed with nothing but audacity and the right rumor held one of the largest empires in the ancient world in his grip. It took a conspiracy of 7 Persian noblemen to finally remove him. And here's the part that truly reveals how these events reshape history. One of those 7 conspirators went on to become Darius the Great, one of the most consequential rulers Persia ever had. A palace coup didn't just end Gaumata's brief reign, it launched a dynasty. But that's not the crazy part, because in some palace coups, the person being removed didn't even realize a replacement was already sitting in the wings fully prepared. Empress Wu Zetian ruled China in the late 7th century, and she remains the only woman in Chinese history to ever claim the title of Empress Regnant in her own name. But before she reached that summit, she had to survive one of the most treacherous political environments ever recorded. And her story contains a coup that worked in reverse, not the powerful being overthrown, but a woman systematically dismantling everyone around her until no rival remained. Wu had been a concubine of Emperor Taizong. When he died, she should have been sent to a Buddhist monastery to live out her remaining years in religious contemplation, as was the custom for concubines. Instead, she caught the attention of the new emperor. Gaozong became his consort, and then began an extraordinarily calculated rise. She accused Empress Wang and consort Xiao, her 2 primary rivals, for Gaozong's favor of practicing sorcery. Both were demoted, imprisoned, and later died under her watch. She then positioned herself as co-ruler alongside Gaozong, who was in poor health, effectively running the empire's administration. When Gaozong died, she governed through 2 of her own sons, deposing the first when he showed signs of independence. When the second proved compliant enough, she eventually set him aside too, and proclaimed herself Empress of the Zhou dynasty in 690 AD, ruling in her own name until she was finally removed in 705 AD, when she was in her 80s and seriously ill by a coalition of court officials and her own son. What makes Wu Zetian's story so striking isn't just the gender barrier she shattered, it's the precision. Every move calculated, every alliance tested before it was trusted, every threat neutralized before it could act. She understood something that most rulers only learn after it's too late in a palace. The political is always personal, and the personal is always lethal. And because of that, what comes next changes everything. Because not every internal coup required years of patience. Some happened in a single night. The Janissary Revolts in the Ottoman Empire represent one of history's most repeated palace coup patterns. The Janissaries were the Ottoman Sultan's elite infantry, originally composed of conscripted Christian boys converted to Islam, trained from childhood to be the empire's most loyal and lethal soldiers. No family ties, no outside allegiances. Entirely devoted to the Sultan. That was the theory. In practice, they became something else entirely. By the 17th century, the Janissaries had transformed from an instrument of imperial power into a political force capable of making and breaking sultans. Between 1617 and 1648 alone, 4 sultans were deposed. Not by foreign armies, by their own guards. Sultan Osman II learned this the hard way. He was young, reformist, and ambitious. He recognized the Janissaries had become bloated and politically dangerous, and he wanted to replace them with a new loyal army recruited from Anatolia and Arab provinces. He made the fatal error of announcing his intentions before he had the power to enforce them. In 1622, the Janissaries revolted. Osman was seized, humiliated, dragged through the streets of Constantinople, and eventually killed in the Seven Towers fortress. He was 19 years old. His reformist vision died with him. His successor was a sultan the Janissaries found more manageable. The lesson here is brutal and precise. The moment a ruler's instrument of power realizes it has more leverage than the ruler, the balance of the entire system shifts. The Janissaries didn't overthrow Osman II because they were evil or chaotic. They did it because he threatened their survival. That is how power actually works, not through loyalty to principle, but through loyalty to self-interest. Now here's where it gets genuinely unsettling, because the next case shows that sometimes the coup isn't just political. It's deeply personally familial. Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, the man who built the Taj Mahal as a monument to grief for his beloved wife, spent the final 8 years of his life imprisoned by his own son. Aurangzeb III, and most ruthless of Shah Jahan's sons, launched a war of succession in 1658 before his father had even died. He defeated and executed his brothers one by one. He imprisoned his own father in Agra Fort, and then he ruled the Mughal Empire for nearly 50 years, the longest reign of any Mughal emperor. Shah Jahan spent those final years staring out at the Taj Mahal from the window of his prison chamber. His son sent him food, kept him alive, but never let him go. The cruelty wasn't physical, it was architectural, the greatest monument to love, visible but unreachable, a daily reminder of everything that had been taken. Aurangzeb justified his actions on grounds of efficient governance. His father, he argued, was too old, too grief-stricken, too lost in his own building projects to manage an empire under external pressure. And there is a cold, uncomfortable truth buried inside that justification. Shah Jahan genuinely had overextended imperial resources on construction projects. Aurangzeb wasn't entirely wrong in his analysis. He was entirely ruthless in his method. What makes this coup different from the others is what it reveals about the Mughal succession system itself. There was no formal rule of primogeniture. The eldest son did not automatically inherit. Every emperor's death, or even his perceived weakness, triggered a war among princes. Aurangzeb didn't invent this dynamic. He simply won it more decisively than anyone before him. And then, by the time he died in 1707, he had overextended the empire in his own wars, leaving it fragmented and vulnerable to the same centrifugal forces he had once mastered. But wait, it gets even more surprising, because the final case on this list didn't involve a dramatic military confrontation or years of political maneuvering. It happened in a single document, a single signature. In the dead of winter, Tsar Peter III of Russia ruled for exactly 6 months in 1762. He was widely considered erratic pro-Prussian in the middle of a war against Prussia and contemptuous of the Russian Orthodox Church in a deeply devout society. His wife, a German princess who had converted to Orthodoxy and immersed herself in Russian culture with remarkable devotion, had been building alliances for years. Her name was Catherine. History would call her the Great. In July of 1762, while Peter was away at his residence at Oranienbaum, Catherine was woken in the early morning and told that a key conspirator in their plan had been arrested, which meant they had to act immediately or face exposure. She rode to St. Petersburg, was declared empress by the palace guards, received the loyalty oath of the army, and had herself crowned that same day. Peter, confronted with the reality that his own military had abandoned him, signed an abdication document within days. He was dead within 2 weeks, killed under circumstances that Catherine never fully explained and always denied ordering. What makes this coup historically remarkable isn't just that a woman outmaneuvered an emperor, it's how she did it. Catherine understood that legitimacy in 18th century Russia was performative. She wore a military uniform, she rode a horse. She appeared before the guards not as a frightened woman asking for protection, but as their commander. She spoke Russian fluently in a court where many nobles still fumbled with the language. She had become more Russian than the Russian emperor, and that's actually what makes this the most instructive of all 5 cases, because every coup on this list succeeded not simply through force, but through a story. Gaumata told the story of a rightful prince. Zetian told the story of a divine mandate. The Janissaries told the story of Ottoman tradition betrayed. Aurangzeb told the story of competent necessity, and Catherine told the story of a true Russian ruler in a foreign emperor's court. The weapon that toppled these empires from within wasn't always a blade. It was a narrative that enough powerful people chose to believe. So here's what all 5 of these moments share beneath the surface. Power is never as secure as it looks from the outside. The closer someone is to the throne, the more dangerous they can be, not because of personal evil, but because proximity creates both opportunity and motive. Every single ruler in these stories had a blind spot, and the coup grew quietly in exactly that shadow. Whether it was a foreign wife who outmaneuvered her own husband, a son who refused to wait for inheritance, or a guard corps that realized it held the real power, the pattern is the same. Internal collapse is always the empire's most honest mirror. Which of these 5 cases do you think revealed the deepest flaw in how empires structure power, and do you think any of these rulers could have prevented what happened to them? Drop your thoughts below, because genuinely curious what you see. If this kind of deep dive history is what you're looking for, hit like, subscribe and ring the bell. That's how you make sure you don't miss what's coming next. This has been Eclipse History. I'll see you in the next one.